Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone's doing well this time. And today, might have noticed, I'm not getting paid for this, so no names. But what do I have here? Snacks, nuts and fruit. A good snack to have if you go hiking with your friends. If you go out hiking, you need to remember bring some healthy snacks, something to give you some energy. I would say you probably don't want to eat treats for the cat to get your energy. You should eat something with some nutrients, something good for you to keep you going so you can climb up that slope. And maybe if you get to the top, you can see a really nice view out there and enjoy the nice weather. Right now in Taipei, it's pretty hot, so I'm not sure if you want to go hiking, but if you can find a place where you can go hiking and then jump into the water and swim around a little bit, that'll be a nice way to cool off. So it's worth a try if you haven't been hiking before. I'd recommend it. So this time we are looking at lesson 5, conversation 1. Okay? So exciting new stuff. This lesson, you're over at your friend's house visiting, and your friend's showing you the new apartment. Oh, that's kind of nice. And you go to the living room to relax while your friend's making some food. And what do? You start eating some snacks that are lying around, right? And nom nom. Ooh, I almost finished the whole bag. Oh, it's so good. And your friend says, you just ate treats for a cat. Ooh, but you're feeling pretty good. You're like, wow, they taste so good. Who cares? It's okay. So here our conversation is with a positive personality who's not bothered by it. He's just looks on the bright side. That's great. I feel energetic. Cool. And then moving forward, next week we'll see the negative personality, and then we'll have the chill personality, then our silly personality. And all of these, you'll get to see this character and the friend. Based on the personality, what kind of adventure do they go on for the weekend, okay? So this first one is you're feeling pretty good. You feel energetic from eating these snacks. And so you say, hey, let's go on a hike. I have a surprise for you. And you go on a hike and say, let's go that way. Ho ho. And your friend goes up and shoo, flies down the mountain and goes off a cliff. And then falls into a river. Oh, it sounds kind of scary, but doing these kinds of things, well, not the falling down part, that's too scary. But going on a hike and then jumping into a river and swimming around is actually a really fun, nice thing to do in the summertime here in Taiwan. If you haven't done it, I recommend it. There are some beautiful, beautiful places you can hike in Taiwan, and the rivers are nice and clean, and it's not too busy. So try to do some research, try to find some cool hiking trails, maybe river tracing. River tracing is a kind of hiking where you hike in a river. So you might need special shoes for that, or you might slip and fall down. Ooh, careful, okay? So let's get started with our first part. So now we are talking about, we're talking about contrast. So showing differences between two ideas, okay? So here in our first part, we talked about while and however and on the other hand. And then that's our second part. Our third part, we have nevertheless, nonetheless, still, and mind you, more connecting phrases. And then lastly, we have despite and in spite of, and then despite the fact, in spite of the fact, okay? So all of these are different ways to show contrast, show that two ideas are different, right? So let's get started with our first round of ways to show contrast. And like I mentioned in our lessons, a lot of these are basically the same meaning. They're ways to show contrast. But why do we have different phrases? Well, because there's a slight difference in feeling or focus based on what words you want to use, okay? Like a lot of these things you could just say but, right? B-U-T. But why would we use still? Why would we use mind you? Why would you use however or nevertheless? Well, because each word has a little bit of a different feeling, or maybe you're trying to express a different emotion or focus on different parts of your sentence, okay? So all of these are very similar in meaning, but there's slight differences in what you're trying to express. And so, because they're so similar, if your translations are different from mine, that's okay. As long as you use the grammar and the ideas in the right way, it's okay if you change one word for another word. If you use still and I use mind you, or you use that said and I use however, it's okay. The meaning is very similar. It just changes the feeling of these sentences a little bit. So don't worry too much about each of these being totally different. You can usually take one and change it for another, and it will probably be okay. So let's get started with Lesson 5, Conversation 1, Part 2. Just jump into it. 虽然开车很方便，但停车位很难找。Oh yeah. Do any of you drive? I drive in America, but not in Taiwan. And in America, where my parents live, it's not too hard to drive because it's not super tight. But if you go into the city, it can get really scary and hard to find a parking space. So in English, for this sentence, I would say, while driving is really convenient, finding a parking space is really difficult. Okay. Another way to say it, I might say, while driving is really convenient, it's really hard to find a parking space. Okay? Two different ways to write the same thing. And as I said before, there are many, many, many other ways to express the same idea. Now, my first one, I said, while driving is really convenient, finding a parking space is really difficult. The reason I do it this way is because driving and finding, I have them both as gerunds. A gerund is a verb plus ing, and it works like a verb. Look, it works like a noun, I'm sorry. So driving, finding, and I use them as the subject. While driving is really convenient, finding a parking space is really difficult. And the reason I do this is because it makes both sides of the sentence similar. It kind of feels balanced. And so this is something that a lot of people like to do. If you have one verb one way, have the next verb the same way, okay? So it's good to have consistency. So driving is really convenient. Finding a parking space is really difficult. Okay. And a lot of you use the word very, very convenient, very difficult. But actually, when people are speaking in American English, people will use the word really more often than the word very. Okay? So if you're using very all the time, try using really instead. Because in spoken English in America, really is more common than very. Okay? Now, so finding a parking space is really difficult. And finding what? I said parking space. You could also say a parking spot, okay? Or you could just use the word parking. Finding parking. Parking meaning in general, any parking, instead of one parking space, okay? And another way to say this is parking spaces are hard to find. That's fine too. Now, I used while for the sentence. While A, B. You could also use other things that we've learned. You could use however. Driving is really convenient. However, finding a parking space is really difficult. and the meaning is basically the same. So don't worry about it if you use different words, because it's just different ways to show contrast. One thing is different than the other. Okay, next sentence. 戴口罩不太舒服，但可以保护自己. Okay, so this is true. And sometimes for me, like, gives me pimples and stuff, right? Wearing a mask too much. But, oh well, too bad. Wearing a mask isn't very comfortable. However, you can protect yourself. Another way to write this would be, while wearing a mask isn't very comfortable, it can protect you. Okay, so two different ways to write it, one using however, one using while. Okay, now my subject is wearing a mask. It's a verb plus ing, acting like a noun. So wearing a mask, that's our subject. Okay, and you should say wearing a mask, not the mask. The mask means you already know which mask we're talking about. But if we mean any mask, like you wear a mask, you wear a mask, you wear a mask, it should be a, because you're not talking about just one mask. You're talking about any mask that someone has, okay? So wearing a mask. So you can write it as wearing a mask isn't very comfortable, period. However, comma, you can protect yourself. So remember where the periods and commas go. Be careful. And then if you use while, you'd say while wearing a mask isn't very comfortable, comma, it can protect you. So however, it's period, however, comma. For while, you do while, A, comma, B. So don't forget what your periods and commas do, because if you get your sentence perfect, but you mess up the commas and periods, it doesn't look so good too, okay? Now, a big thing that a lot of you did is that in Chinese it says 但可以保护自己. So many of you students said it can protect yourself, or it can protect myself. It can protect ourselves. Now remember the words yourself, myself, or ourselves. It's talking about someone is doing something for themselves. So if I do something for me, I do it for myself. If you do something for you, that's for yourself, okay? And so you can't mix your subjects. So using it can protect yourself doesn't really make sense, because it protects itself, or that would be the way you use itself. Or so yourself has to go with you. You can protect yourself, okay? So that was a tricky one, because these words are called reflexive pronouns, where it's like someone is doing something and it's coming, that action is going back to the person who did it. So if I talk to myself, oh, Kyle, how are you today? I'm talking, but it's to myself, right? So it's always going out and coming back to the same person. Okay, so it doesn't work if you do it can protect yourself. It would be you can protect yourself. Okay? Okay, next up, 找伴侣时，外貌很重要，但个性和内涵也很重要. Okay? Now, this is important for everybody trying to find romance, trying to find love. Okay? When looking for a partner, appearance is very important. However, personality and inner beauty are also very important. Okay. When looking for a partner. So here is the beginning. You can start with the when phrase to show, because that's a really important part of the sentence. When looking for a partner, that's, you're trying to establish at the beginning What's the situation? When looking for a partner, appearance is very important. Yeah, of course. If people go on Tinder, that app, they swipe right, they're looking at pictures. They're not looking at your personality right away. So appearance is very important. However, personality and inner beauty are also very important. So we use however to show a contrast. Here's one thing, and then here's a different idea that's also true. So personality means the way you act, and then Neihan doesn't really have a good translation into English. There's not really a direct translation. So I think a good way to say this would be inner beauty. Inner beauty is a pretty common phrase when people are describing the wonderful things about a person. And that's part of that is their personality, but also their feelings and being nice, their kindness, all of that stuff is someone's inner beauty. Okay? So this is a common phrase, inner beauty. Okay? So I would use that here instead of something else. So now I said when looking for a partner, you could also say when looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend, when looking for a match, when looking for a significant other. I saw when looking for a better half, and that's okay, but that's usually used when people are already together. Like someone might say, oh, my other half is, or my better half is doing something. And that would mean their boyfriend or girlfriend or their spouse. A spouse is a husband or wife. And then I also saw a mate, but mate is usually used for friends. In American English, looking for a mate. It either sounds too formal, like you're looking for a mate, or it could mean just a friend. So to be more clear, I would use something like a partner or a boyfriend or girlfriend, significant other, or something like that. Okay. I said they are also very important. Of course, you could use the word to instead of also. So I said appearance is very important. You could also say appearance matters. So appearance matters. Appearance is important. And instead of appearance, there are other ways to say it too. You could say looks. You could say appearance. Or you could say good looks. Looks with an S. If you want looks to be a noun, you should use S. You cannot say good looking is. That doesn't work. Good looking is an adjective. So you could say good looks are important. Okay? And then for the personality and inner beauty, the inner beauty, like I said before, is difficult to translate. So I said inner beauty. I saw people use the word substance, which is okay. Substance meaning like important stuff about the way they think or the way they feel. Being cultured it wouldn't work in here. Cultured is an adjective, and that means like they understand how to be polite and stuff like that. And then a few people used their inner mind or mind. Personality and mind are also important. Yeah, you could say mind, something like that, but you might want to say the way they think is also very important. That might be a little bit more spoken conversational English, okay? And then a few people use the word connotation. And connotation is what I think is what Google Translate gives for Neihan. Now, connotation is something different. Connotation means the meaning behind a word. So you could say use two different words to say the same thing, but each one might have a different connotation. Maybe there's a little hidden meaning inside. Maybe they both mean one thing, but one means in a good way, one means in a bad way. like 嫉妒跟羡慕. In English, you'd say jealous or envy. They're jealous or envious. And they both mean kind of the same thing, but one is bad, one is good. And so that's the connotation. Okay. So, like I said, connotation doesn't really work here, talking about a person. Okay. Next up is 他不善于言辞，但另一方面来说，他不会用花言巧语骗人. Okay, sounds like me, right? So in English, I would say he's not well spoken. On the other hand, he won't use flowery language to trick people. Now, this one was kind of tricky, and that's okay because flowery language is probably something you haven't learned before. So the first part, he's not well spoken. Well spoken is an adjective to describe someone who's good at speaking. Oh, he is well spoken. Maybe he knows how to put his ideas into sentences in a nice way or in an effective way. But if he's not well spoken. Maybe the way he speaks is very simple. He stumbles on his words, stuff like that. Now, you could also say he's not good at speaking or he's not a good speaker, okay? That would be okay. He's not a good speaker is similar to he's not well spoken. I saw he's not good at words a few times. You could say he's not good with words. There's not really a reason why one is better than the other, but good at words sounds a little awkward, or it's not a common phrase. But good with words is pretty common. So he's not good with words. But I also saw he's not talkative. This does not fit here. Remember, talkative means someone who talks a lot. So the meaning of talkative is different. We want someone who doesn't speak well. So he's not well spoken. Okay? And then, on the other hand, so here's one idea. On the other hand, he won't use flowery language to trick people. So flowery language is a phrase that means really fancy, nice words that are kind of making everything seem nice and beautiful. And he uses big words or big fancy language. And so that's called flowery language, okay? You could also say he won't use smooth talk to trick people. Smooth talk means something similar, maybe like he's really good at talking and he can convince you of something, okay? And then I saw a few people use sweet words and beautiful words. These are not really common phrases, but I understand what you mean. You might want to say something like nice words. Nice words would be more common than saying sweet words or beautiful words, okay? And then the last part, to trick people. I would say in general, you should use trick here because it could be for whatever. Maybe tricking people into giving them money, tricking them into doing something. If you use the word deceive, deceive is also correct, but it's a little more formal than the word trick. And that's fine. And then if you use cheat, usually cheat means to trick someone out of money or out of things. So it's a little more specific. And you could also use lie to people. And that's also focusing on just using words. Lying to someone is telling them something that's not true, okay? So I'll give you a second to ask any questions. Let me check something quick. Yes, smooth talk. So smooth, like the way they speak is very smooth and it feels really comfortable and nice, but it's actually like not always good. So if someone is a smooth talker, that means they're really good with words. Okay? Let's keep going. It's lesson 5, conversation 1, part 3. Oh, so many numbers. 5, 1, 3. And so this one, we're practicing nevertheless, nonetheless, and then a few other phrases. Still, mind you, and that said. So they're all pretty similar, other ways to show contrast. These ones are a little bit less common than the things we've learned before, but they're still useful, and they are used to show different emotions or different feelings. Okay? So the first sentence is 那位女演员已经50多岁了，还是保养得很好. Oh, pretty good. So there are a lot of actresses like this out there. Maybe being rich can help. Okay. So in English, I would say that actress is already in her 50s. Nevertheless, she's taken good care of herself. You could also say, nevertheless, she still looks good. Okay. So that actress is already in her 50s. So she's over 50 and she's in her 50s. So the 50s are from 50 to 59. You're in there, you're in your 50s. So you could use that for any age group. So I'm still in my 30s, okay? My cousin is in her 20s. So stuff like that, okay? That actress is already in her 30s. You could also say this saying, that actress is already over 50. That would be fine too. And you could just say over 50. You don't need to add the words years old, because we know you're talking about her age, okay? And then we use nevertheless to show that something is different than what you expect. It's a little bit surprising, right? She's in her 50s. Nevertheless, she's taken good care of herself. So in Chinese, 保养得很好 is usually talking about her skin and like her face looks really good. But in English, we don't really focus on just her face for this kind of idea. We talk about everything. And so you could say she's taken good care of herself. So to like take good care of yourself, it just means like you look good, because maybe you eat healthy, you exercise, and you look young, okay? So you could say she's taking good care of herself, she looks good, okay? Or she looks young. That would be okay too, okay? Another way would be she doesn't look her age. So her age is in her 50s. If she doesn't look her age, that usually means she looks a lot younger, okay? Now, there were a few other sentences that students wrote that were close, but not quite. So she's had good skincare. That's the right idea, but we wouldn't use it that way. Skincare is the process. You wouldn't say she had good skincare. And then I saw she's in good condition or she's well preserved. Now, these are not phrases you would use for a person. Something that's in good condition might be a thing that you bought and you had it for a long time. And like your car might be in good condition. But you wouldn't use this for a person. That means like the thing you have, that item, hasn't broken yet. You can still use it. And then well preserved is usually used for food, maybe, or maybe like a piece of art where you protect it so it doesn't go bad. So we wouldn't use that for people either. So good condition, well preserved are used for things, but not for people, okay? Same with the word maintain. She maintains well. Maintain is usually used for things also, like I maintained my car or something like that, meaning like I kept it working well, okay? So the phrases you should use: she's taking good care of herself, she looks pretty young, she doesn't look her age, she still looks good, or she looks great, something like that, okay? Okay, GNS is over her 50s. Should I add her here? Yes. If you use in blah, blah, blah 50s, you need the word her. So I am in my 30s. She is in her 50s. My parents are in their 60s. Stuff like that. So because it's your age, so you would say, in this sentence, you would say in her 50s. But if we use over, you do not use her. So it's in her 50s. But if you're using over, you're talking about the number is over 50. So she is over 50, meaning she is over 50 years old, okay? So, like for me, I am over 30. So you don't need to have the my or the her in there, okay? But if it's in his or her 50s, okay? And Ginny asks, can I use she still wears it well? Now, when we're talking about the person's face and body, we wouldn't use the word wears. Wears is talking about clothing. So if you say she wears it well, that means she looks good in her clothes. So usually if someone is wearing clothes, like let's say you see someone wearing a suit, you could say, wow, that man wears his suit well. Or a woman is wearing a red dress, and you say, wow, she wears it well, meaning she looks good in that dress, okay? But when we're talking about someone's skin or their body, we don't often use wears it well, okay? And then next up. Oh, everyone's so mean to me. Oh, geez. 大家都说我不可能考上哈佛，但我还是想要试试看。Okay. So you can do it. I believe in you. So in English, I would say, everyone says that I can't get into Harvard. Nevertheless, I still want to try. Okay. Now this one, well, like I've said before, if you use a different word to show the contrast, that's okay. Everyone says I can't get into Harvard. Oh, so sad. Nevertheless, I still want to try. So the first part, Harvard is a school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right next to Boston. And so if you ever visit Massachusetts, go visit the Harvard campus. It's pretty cool. And so everyone says, I can't get into Harvard. So when we're talking about universities or schools, we usually use the verb get into or get in. So everyone says, I can't get into Harvard. And this means I won't be accepted to Harvard. So you could say that. You could say, everyone says, I can't be accepted into Harvard, or I won't get accepted into Harvard. But in spoken English, people will just use get into as the verb, okay? So you could also make this stronger and say impossible. Everyone says it's impossible for me to get into Harvard, okay? You could also say gain admission into Harvard. That sounds much more formal, and so in spoken English, people wouldn't say that, but it's correct. You would see that in maybe a letter from the school or an article about going to school. Oh, this person tried to gain admission to Harvard. But spoken, people just say get into, okay? And then I also saw never pass the exam to Harvard, but Harvard doesn't have an exam you need to pass. So schools in America, yes, you need to take tests like the SAT or the ACT, but these are not exams you need to pass to get to a school. You have to do well, but there's no pass and fail for it. So there's no exam you need to pass for Harvard. So that doesn't really apply here. Okay, and then the connecting word, I use nevertheless, because forget them, I'm going to surprise you. I still want to try. So there's this difference and it's a bit of a shock. Nevertheless, I still want to try. You're kind of showing that you're strong with a strong word like nevertheless. And so you could also use another word. You could use nonetheless. Nonetheless, nevertheless, basically the same. You could also use that said. So everyone says I can't get into Harvard. That said, I still want to try. So this is true. Everyone said this, and that's a statement that's out there. And I accept that that was said. So that said, I still want to try. And it's another way to show contrast, basically just saying, yeah, I know that's true, but I want to do this, okay? And then you could also use the word still. Still, comma, I want to try. So showing contrast using still. Or you could use and still. And still, I want to try. Now, all of these are very similar. And like I said before, it just changes the feeling of the sentence. Nevertheless is a little bit stronger. And then that said, I get it, but I want to do that. And then still is saying like, this is true, but I'm doing that. Okay? So they're all pretty similar. And then still, I want to try. You could also say, I want to give it a try. Okay? But you don't want to add the word it at the end of this. I still want to try, or I want to give it a try. But we wouldn't say, I still want to try it, because we haven't told you what it really is. It's not like one little thing, okay? So leave out the it. Okay, let's see, I have a question. Could I use get into for a job or other things that I really want to get? For a job, you would say get a job, but you would not say get into a job. Think of the college or the university as a place, or the school, and you want to get into that school. Like there's a space and you want to get into it, okay? But for a job is like an idea. You can't get into a job. You get the job, like you take that job. So you could say you take the job, you get the job, something like that. Saying get into a company, it sounds a little bit, it's not a common phrase. So can you get into other things? You could, like if it's a kind of group or like a place, some sort of group or a place that you want to join, you could say get into something. But a job, you're not joining the job, you're joining the company. So you get the job at a company. Okay, hopefully that helps. Okay, next up, let's see. Now, this is true about me and someone I know. And we're really friendly, but we don't know each other super well. And every time I see this guy, we're really friendly. We say, hey, how you doing? And we chat, but we don't really hang out. We don't really talk too much about personal things. So 他们已经认识10多年，但还是不熟. Oh, geez. Well, for me and this friend of mine, it's about 5 years, not 10. So this sentence, I would translate it as, they've known each other for more than 10 years. Still, they don't know each other well. Okay? You could also say, still, they aren't close. Okay? So they've known each other for more than 10 years. Okay? You could also say for a decade or for over a decade. A decade just means 10 years. Okay? And be careful, it should be more than 10 years or more than a decade. If you just say more 10 years, that doesn't work. You need the word then, THAN, okay? And then still, they don't know each other well. So a lot of students use the word familiar. They're still not familiar. This doesn't really work for this situation. Being familiar with someone means you know who they are This is kind of like know of and know about that we learned before. To be familiar with someone means you know of them. You know who they are, but maybe you don't know much about them. So if you say they're not familiar, that doesn't really work here. It's not the meaning that you're trying to say, okay? And so it's better to say something, use simpler words to get the main idea. Say, they don't know each other well, or they aren't close, or they aren't very close, okay? So if you say not familiar or something like they don't know about each other much, that sounds like they don't really know who the other person is. And maybe they know their name, but that's it. But in this sentence, it's more like they are kind of friendly, but they're not close. So they don't know each other well, or they're not close, okay? So that one, there weren't too many problems. Let me know if you have any more questions. Next up. 你可以摸我家的猫，不过呢，它可能会抓你。Ooh, scary cat. So, in English, I would write this as, you can pet our cat. Mind you, he might scratch you. Okay, so here, the verb we use for touching an animal, someone's pet, is pet, okay? Someone has a pet. What do you do to that pet? You pet the pet. English can be really annoying sometimes, right? You pet your friend's pet. So you can pet our cat. To pet is go like this. To rub it in a nice way. You could also say, you can touch our cat. You can touch our cat, but usually if you're going to touch the cat, you're going to pet the cat. So just use pet. If you say pat, P-A-T, the meaning is different. Pet is a nice, gentle touch, maybe, or however you touch a pet. But to pat something is to go like this. Pat, 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 pat. And some pets like when you pat them, but maybe the cat will not like if you go pat, pat, pat. So be careful. Don't pat the cat. Pet the cat. Pet, pat, pet, pat. Can you try? So you can pet our cat. Mind you, he might scratch you. So here we're showing a contrast, right? A, but B. And why did I use mind you? Mind you means but or however, but what does it do also? It's giving you a little bit of a hint, a little bit of warning. So it's the same as but, except, like I said before, all of these phrases have slightly different meanings. Using mind you is to remind someone or give them a heads up or give them a warning about something. So you can pet our cat. Mind you, he might scratch you. Okay? Now, you might have heard me say he and not it. Okay? Now, a lot of people might say it might scratch you, and that's totally fine. But a lot of people who have cats and dogs don't like to call their pets it. So if someone has a dog or a cat, they will call their dog or cat he or she, depending on if it's a boy or a girl. So this sentence, I would say you shouldn't say it might scratch you, because some people who have cats and dogs say, don't call my dog an it. Don't call my cat an it. So you should say he or she, okay? He might scratch you. And scratch is to use your fingernails and go, or for a cat, it's claws. So be careful. You don't want to get hurt, okay? And then use he might scratch you. I saw he maybe scratch you. But remember, we want to put the word maybe at the beginning of the phrase or at the end. Maybe he will scratch you, or he will scratch you. Maybe, okay? And it's better at the beginning. Maybe he will scratch you. But if you want it between, you should use might. He might scratch you, okay? Don't pat my pet. Oh. Okay. Let's keep on moving. We're at lesson 5, conversation 1, part 4. Okay. Now, this time we're using something to show contrast, but it's showing that there's one thing or one idea that's not important. Okay. And here we use despite, or in spite of, or despite the fact that, or in spite of the fact that. Now, in day-to-day life, you might not use these very often, but the word despite is the most important one here. So if you remember despite, then that'll make it easy to remember in spite of. In spite of is less common than despite. And then if you remember despite, then if someone says despite the fact that, you'll remember what that means. You don't really need to use that in your speaking day to day, but people will say it. You might read it. You might hear it. Okay? So it's a tool to help you understand people and express yourself. So despite is the most common one. And so in all of these, I use despite for the homework. Okay? And if you want to, if you like the sound of in spite of better than despite, you can change despite for in spite of, and it means the same thing. Okay. So our first sentence is 为了减肥成功，虽然身体酸痛，还是去重练。Oh, sorry, 重训。Okay. So to successfully lose weight, I still went to lift weights despite feeling sore. Okay, so here we have something that we're going to learn in the future, using the word to show why you do something. To successfully lose weight, I still went to lift weights despite feeling sore. Okay, so to successfully lose weight, you want to lose weight. Weight means how heavy you are, and you want to lose some of that weight. So maybe you're 300 kg and you want to get down to 280. You're losing weight, okay? So to successfully lose weight, this is what you're trying to do. And so what do you do to do that? I still went to lift weights. Lifting weights means going to the gym and picking up heavy stuff. And you lift weights despite feeling sore. So despite will tell you what thing is not important. Feeling sore. Now, despite needs to be followed by a noun, right? But here we have a verb ing, feeling, and that works like a noun, right? Despite feeling sore, this idea of feeling sore. So you take that, throw it away, okay? I still went to lift weights despite feeling sore, okay? Our first part, to successfully lose weight. I saw a few different ways of writing this. You could say to successfully diet, but you don't want to use a verb with diet. So I saw things like make my diet or make success of diet. Don't use the word make here. You'd say, you could use diet as a verb. You could say diet successfully. Okay. Lose weight successfully. Successfully lose weight. Both are okay. And then to successfully lose weight. Or if you want the longer version of that, you could say in order to successfully lose weight. We're going to learn in order to in a future lesson. So don't worry about that too much. And so I went to lift weights. So that's the action. You could also say do weight training. Weight training means training and exercising using heavy weights. You could also say go to the gym. That's more general. But remember how to spell gym, G-Y-M, okay? Don't mix it up with other words that sound the same. Sound the same. Sorry. Okay, and then the last part, despite feeling sore. You could change this into many other like phrases. You could say, despite feeling sore, despite having aches, despite my body aches and pains, despite the fact that my body is aching. So if you use despite the fact that, you need to follow it with a subject verb. Despite the fact that my body is aching, okay? So that's another way to say it. It's just a little more complicated, a little bit longer, but that's okay. Sometimes you want to use more words. Okay. I saw a couple of people write something like, despite my body is sore. Now, be careful with that. If you use the word despite, it needs to be followed by a noun or a verb ing, which is treated like a noun, okay? So despite feeling sore. If you say, my body is sore, you'd have to say, despite the fact that my body is sore, blah, 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 okay? So remember what goes with what. Okay, next up, oh, Bob, another crazy sentence about Bob. Bob 其实暗恋你，虽然他不承认。Oh, Bob, just tell somebody. Don't keep it a secret. So, in English, actually, Bob has a crush on you, despite the fact that he won't admit it. Okay, actually, Bob has a crush on you, despite the fact that he won't admit it. So, the word actually, you could put actually at the beginning or before the verb. You could say, Bob actually has a crush on you. That would be okay, but for emphasis, to make it stronger, you can put it at the beginning of the sentence. Actually, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Now, for our homework over the past few weeks, we've had this secret love come up a lot of times. So hopefully, if you've been following along, you remember some of the ideas. So if we have the word crush, someone has a crush. Now, the word crush is a secret love. And usually in American English, we use it as a noun, to have a crush. So Bob has a crush on you. Ooh, hoo, hoo. So sometimes people will use crush as a verb. Bob is crushing on you, but that is much less common than crush as a noun. Bob has a crush on you, okay? I also saw Bob has fallen in love with you secretly. Now that's good, that's okay, but maybe move the word secretly into the middle. Bob has secretly fallen in love with you. Ooh, sounds so mysterious. So secretly fallen in love with you sounds more serious, more intense love. A crush is like a very small thing. It's cute. It's what happens at school with kids a lot, but secretly fallen in love sounds a lot stronger, okay? So Bob has a crush on you despite the fact that he won't admit it. So despite the fact that, followed by a subject-verb phrase. He won't admit it. He won't admit it. So he will not admit it. You could also say, despite the fact that he doesn't admit it, that means that when you ask, every time you ask him, he says no. Okay? While won't would be more in general. He won't admit it. And then the word admit. You need an object to go with the verb admit. He won't admit it. Okay? He won't admit it. It sounds kind of tricky. He won't admit it. He won't admit it. Admit it. So here the T isn't a t. He won't admit it. So if you go t, it makes it actually harder to say. So the T at the end of a word is often a stop, where you stop the sound. Admit it. Admit it. Okay? So try it yourself. He won't admit it. So, but you need that word it at the end. Okay? I also saw someone write, despite denying it. Bob has a crush on you despite denying it. Now, he won't admit it and he denies it those are similar, but they're actually kind of different. Denying says if you say Bob is denying it, Bob says, no, I do not like that person. But if you say he won't admit it, maybe he's not saying no, he's just not answering the question. But denying it means he said no. Okay, so denying would be stronger than that. Okay? So, despite the fact that he won't admit it, it's okay, Bob. You can tell us. You can tell the truth. Maybe if you tell the truth, it'll be a wonderful story, right? The start of something beautiful. Okay, now let's see. Next sentence. 虽然那个歌手感冒了，他还是把歌唱完。So this is pretty good. Hopefully the singer sounds pretty good. Hopefully his voice is okay when he's singing. Maybe not worth it to continue. Just give everyone their money back. So in English, I would say, despite the fact that the singer had a cold, he still finished singing. Okay, so despite the fact that the singer had a cold, despite the fact that, followed by subject verb. The singer had a cold. And then what happened? Even though that was true, he still finished singing. Okay? Now, the finished singing part, you could say other things. He still finished his songs. He still finished his performance. He still finished singing his song. He still sang. Whatever. Many different ways to say the same idea. The first part, despite the fact that the singer had a cold, or that the singer was sick, or that he is sick. Okay? You could also say despite his cold. Keep it shorter. Do despite plus a noun. Okay? Or in spite of getting a cold. So in spite of, and then a noun phrase using verb ing. In spite of getting a cold. Okay? So many different ways to write the same thing. Just make sure that despite followed by a noun or verb ing, despite the fact followed by subject, verb, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So everyone did well on that one. Next up, 虽然年纪轻轻，他的想法非常成熟. Now, this one, just because this is the way people speak, it ends up being a bit simpler in English. So despite his young age, he is really mature. So despite his young age. So his young age, this is a thing. This is a number. And we don't care about it. Forget it. Throw it away. Despite his young age, he is really mature. So keep it simple in English. He is really mature. So when we're talking about a kid and we say he is mature, or you could say he acts mature, you know it's about his personality or the way he thinks, the way he acts. So in English, we keep it simple and say, oh, that kid is really mature. Because you know it's the way he thinks, the way he acts, and all that stuff together. Okay? So despite his young age. You could also use despite the fact, saying despite the fact that he is young. Okay? Or if you want to use in spite of, you could say in spite of his youth. His youth is the same as his young age. Okay? And then he is really mature. This is how I would say it. But you could also say he has a mature way of thinking. That would be a way to say more closely to the Chinese, but it's a little bit wordy and you don't need to say it that way. He has a mature way of thinking. Some of you also said his ideas are mature, his thoughts are mature. And yes, they make sense, but these aren't really common phrases, so it's more common to keep it simple and say he is really mature. And this is what I said earlier, right? In America, people will use the word really instead of very. He is really mature is more common than saying he is very mature. Okay? Next up is Lesson 5, Conversation 1, Part 5. So this is our adventure with our friend. So you have a good positive personality. Oh, these cat treats gave me energy. I feel good. Let's get out there and let's go on our adventure. And where do you go? Well, you go for a hike. Ho, ho, ho. I have a surprise for you. Ho, ho, ho. And your friend's a little bit uncomfortable. Oh, it's too hot. Don't worry. You're going to cool off soon. And so, oh, let's go up that way. And you start going up. Ooh, it's kind of slippery. Shoo! Slide down the hill, fly off a cliff, go over the edge of the cliff, and splash into a river. Oh, this is a scary way to do it. But like I said at the beginning of our stream, if you go hiking and you find a nice little river or a nice place to swim, it can feel amazing. Just make sure you don't ruin your shoes, okay? So, and don't surprise your friend. Don't push your friend in or let them fly off a cliff. That would be too scary. And then, oh, there's a waterfall up there. Oh, here we go again. So, hopefully you had fun with this story. It's a little bit crazy, but get to learn some words about hiking and going on an adventure. And so, yeah, a little bit fun this time, and but still some useful phrases we can learn. Okay, so our homework, our first sentence is 我没发现外面在下雨诶，难怪路人都撑着伞。Oh, yeah. So in English, I would say, I didn't realize it was raining outside. No wonder people on the street are holding umbrellas. So I didn't realize it was raining outside. So you walk to the door and go, wow, oh my gosh. And so when you're inside, you couldn't hear it. And then you see it now and you're shocked. Wow, I didn't realize blah, 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 blah. So this is a phrase when you find out something and you're surprised by it. I didn't realize blah, 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 blah. Okay? So let's say you see your friend eating spicy food and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you ate spicy food. Something like that, okay? So I didn't realize it was raining outside. No wonder people on the street are holding umbrellas. So no wonder is a phrase to show that you see something that used to be strange. Maybe at the beginning, that's confusing. But then you figure it out and you go, oh, no wonder, blah, 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 blah. Now I understand, okay? So you don't have to wonder about it. So you say, no wonder. There's no confusing things about it. It makes sense, okay? So I didn't realize it was raining outside. You could also say, I didn't notice it was raining outside. But if you want to express that it's kind of a surprise, you can use the word realize, okay? And then the second part, no wonder people on the street are holding umbrellas. So they hold umbrellas. So the verb in English is just hold an umbrella, okay? You could also say they have their umbrellas open. That's another way to say it, but you could just keep it simple and say hold their umbrellas. And so I said people on the street. You could also say everyone. Now, there are several students who use the word pedestrians. Pedestrians means people walking on the sidewalk or people walking on the street, people who are on foot. They are pedestrians. Now, you can use the word pedestrian, but pedestrian is more formal. And so day-to-day life, people don't say the word pedestrian. But you might see a sign saying pedestrian crossing, meaning like a crosswalk, or in Chinese, a zebra line. Okay? In English, we call that a crosswalk or a pedestrian crossing. Okay? But spoken English, you could just say people. Now, I also saw a few people use passengers. Passengers is someone who goes on something, like a passenger on a bus, passenger on a plane. So don't mix up pedestrian and passenger. Pedestrian means, well, if you know a little bit of clues of pieces of words, PED means foot. So PED, pedestrian, means they are on foot. PED is foot, pedestrian. But that's a little bit formal, okay? Next up, 今天 聚会，我不知道我的前女友会来，你应该提醒我的。Ooh, this sounds like a bad surprise for somebody. So go to a party, go to a get together, and you see everybody. Hey, nice to meet you. How you doing? And oh no, she's here. Now I feel really uncomfortable. Ooh, too bad. So I didn't realize my ex-girlfriend would come to the get together today. You should have given me a heads up. So there are a few different things in here that you might not be comfortable with or may not be very familiar with. So the first part, again, we're using I didn't realize. I didn't realize blah, 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 blah. It's a surprise to you. You could also say something like, I had no idea. I had no idea my ex-girlfriend would come to the get-together. But if it's a surprise, I think I didn't realize is a little bit better, okay? I didn't realize my ex-girlfriend would come to the get-together today. Now, 聚会 in Chinese, a common word that people use in English for people coming together to have a gathering. It doesn't have to be a party. You can use the phrase get together. So we take the verb get and the word together, but if we use them together, you can turn it into a noun, a get together. A get together just means friends coming together and spending time together. You could also use the word party. A lot of students use the word party. I didn't realize my girlfriend would come to the party today. Now, party is fine, but a party sounds a little bit more exciting. And if it's something that's a little bit relaxed, it's casual, you can call it a get together. Party sounds a little bit more wild, okay? So depending on who you're meeting, a party sounds like it was planned more, and maybe it's a little more exciting and crazy, maybe. But get together just means you called a few people and you got together. So you call that event a get together. That's a useful word for you, okay? I also saw a few people use the word reunion. Now, reunion is a little bit too formal for this. Reunion is usually used for like school classmates. So maybe if I meet my classmates from high school, and that might be a high school reunion, meaning like a meeting of all these people that you haven't met in a long time. It's a little bit more of a formal idea. But with friends, you could say party, or if it's a little more casual, you could say get together, okay? And then, last but not least, let's see, you should have given me a heads up. Sorry, I didn't mention that. I think everyone got this part. You should have, past tense, given me a heads up. And a heads up is reminding me of something. It's like a little warning, okay? But it's a little bit less strong than warning. So heads up means just a reminder, a friendly reminder. It's a little bit like a warning. So maybe a reminder is just in general. A warning sounds kind of serious. Heads up is in the middle somewhere, just like a little poke. Hey, you should know this, okay? Okay, last but not least, 如果你提醒我他会来，我就会穿好看一点. Maybe wear a suit or something a little bit nicer, okay? So if you had given me a heads up that she was coming, I would have dressed nicer. Sorry, I'll read that one more time. If you had given me a heads up that she was coming, I would have dressed nicer. Okay. And you might have heard it. When I said I would have, you can say I would have. Okay. And the have, it almost sounds like OF, would have. I would have dressed nicer. So would have kind of squishes together into would have. I would have dressed nicer. Yeah. So, if you had given me a heads up that she was coming, I would have dressed nicer. Now, we need would have. Some people just put would, but we want would have because back then in the past, I would have dressed nicer. But if you just use would, you're talking about now, imagining it. But you can't do that now. It's too late. Okay? So we're talking about back then, what you would have done back then. Okay? The first part, if you had given me a heads up that she was coming. You could also say, if you had given me a warning. But that sounds a little bit more serious, right? You could also say, if you had let me know that she was coming. That's okay too. Or if you had told me that she was coming. That's okay too. All of these are okay. I think heads up is the best because there's a little hint, it's a little warning, it's not too serious. It's just like just telling your friend, hey dude, your ex-girlfriend's coming. Now, if you use the word remind me, that doesn't work here. A reminder or to remind someone means that you're telling them again. Remember the letters RE means it's again. So remind is like mind, your head, again. So remind. So you put it in your mind again. So that means you knew something and your friend will remind you, tell you again. So here, remind doesn't work because you didn't know before, okay? So it's better to give someone a heads up. Now, why do we say heads up? Well, when people are playing baseball or games, they might hit the ball, and if you're not paying attention, maybe you're sitting like this. Someone will say, heads up. So your head up, and then you see the ball, and you can dodge, okay? So that's where heads up comes from. You need to lift your head up and look around and be ready, okay? Now, the second part, I would have dressed nicer. So keep it simple, dressed nicer. Nicer just means like the way you're dressed. And for clothes, we often use the word nice. He looks nice. She looks nice. He is dressed nice. I would have dressed nicer. Okay? You could also say, I would have dressed better. But we often use the word nice when it's talking about clothes. Okay? I saw someone write, I would have worn something prettier. But if our character is a man, he would not use the word prettier because we're talking about, well, if it's a man talking about his ex-girlfriend, he would wear something more handsome. If it's a girl talking about her ex-girlfriend, that's fine too. Then you can use the word prettier. But prettier is used for women. Okay? And then, let's see, what else? I have a question. Is she would come or she was coming okay? Yes, that would be okay. If you had given me a heads up that she would come, I would have dressed nicer. Now, both of them are the same. She was coming or she would come. In this sentence, they both work. So you could say both and that would be okay. As long as it's in the past tense, right? She was coming or she would come. Okay? If you had given me a heads up that she would come, I would have dressed nicer. Okay? That's fine. And then one thing you need to be careful is it should be I would have dressed nicer. Be careful, you need that adjective saying more handsome or nicer or better. If you say I would have gotten dressed, that means you would have put on clothes. If you say, if you had given me a heads up that she was coming, I would have gotten dressed. It sounds like either you're not wearing any clothes or you're wearing your pajamas. And so to get dressed would mean to put on clothes for the first time. So we don't want to say that. We want to say would have dressed better. So you're already wearing clothes, but you wish you wore something a little bit nicer. Okay? So be careful about that. I would have gotten dressed means you're either naked or you're in your pajamas. So hopefully you didn't go to the get-together or the party in just your pajamas or just your underwear. Oh my God. Okay. Now, let's see. I have another question. When we use given in this sentence, it emphasizes that time, the past time. If you had given me a heads up. Yeah. So here we have the verb in the if part. If you had given me a heads up. This is past perfect tense. Had given. And when we have the past perfect in the if part, if you had given me a heads up, we're talking about a situation in the past that didn't happen. So we're talking about back then, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago. Something didn't happen. If you had given me a heads up back then, if it were true in the past, then we, in the second part, we use would have, because it's imagining how things would have been different. So if you had given me a heads up that she was coming, so back then you told me, I would have dressed nicer. So imagining what I would have done different. Okay? So the had given means that, like, you should have told me back then, but you didn't. So we're talking about if that happened, then what would happen differently. Okay? So we talked a lot about the if then phrases in a few lessons ago. We had if in the past tense, and then if in the past perfect tense, and how the different ways to use them. So if you want to review how to do the if with the past perfect, I think that was not too long ago. Okay, so you could look back a couple lessons to practice. Okay. Okay, so I'll give you guys another minute or two if you have any other questions, but that's about it for today. A lot of this is showing contrast, right? Showing you're saying one thing, and then you're trying to show that things are a little bit different. It doesn't mean one thing is wrong or right, but it's showing that there are two ideas, and you're trying to compare the two. Here's one, and then here's another. And you can link those together with many, many, many different words and phrases. And sometimes you can just switch them in and out, and it's okay, but it will change the meaning in slightly different ways, okay? So that said, I think we can end things here. Did you see what I did there? So hopefully you guys enjoyed our little story about going on a hike. If you have a chance, try hiking. Taiwan has amazing hiking trails. And if you've never tried hiking or you've never tried river tracing, get out there. I don't know where you guys live, but most cities in Taipei, there are hiking trails that are, most cities in Taiwan, there are hiking trails really close to the city. They might not be the most crazy, exciting hiking trails, but there are hiking trails really close to every city. You could try an easy one to start. Like in Taipei, you can go to Elephant Mountain, just take the MRT, and you can do a little hike up there. And it'll take you maybe 1 hour or maybe 2 hours. So give it a try. And then if you want to go on a further adventure, you could go a little bit further away and either take a train or ride a scooter. So get out there, try hiking. And the summertime is super hot. Maybe try river tracing, where you walk in a river, okay? So get out there, have some fun. And if there are no more questions, we can end here. And then if you're free, give me a call. Let's chat for a few minutes. And then if not, that's okay. I know everybody's tired from a long day. And so I'll see you next time. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And give me a call if you're free. Okay. I'll see you next time. And good night.